there is a map of Turkey. I can show you the cities that you can see where it is. Maybe on the internet you can look. He said when he did, of course, unfortunately, World War One started. World War One when started, the Russians came all the way to Van, Bitlis, Erzurum, all those areas they occupied. As a result, he had almost like 300 students. They all became soldiers, fighting with him. Uh, and Enver Pasha, he was the commander-in-chief, appointed him as colonel for the head of one division. And they all fought together against the Russians. But I guess, of course, they give, for different assignments. You go fight over there, you go there. When they sent him to beat this area, he wounded. He broke his leg. And have you ever read his life?
Yes.
His biography? So as a result, he was captured by the Russians. So he became, war prisoner, and he was sent to Russia until almost the end of the World War One. And somehow, what he did, he escaped, from northern side of Russia, came all the way to Germany, and then to Vienna, and then he went to the Turkish embassy there. So, and they were very happy. They gave him passport money and everything, and he came back to Istanbul. You probably know all of these things, and in Istanbul, of course, everybody was so happy that he had said that Zaman has come, and they appointed him also at Darul Hikmet Islamiyya, which is a very high position. There were very great scholars working there. He himself didn't accept, actually. They forced him. You need to understand, this, of course, Ustaz usually didn't like government work. And if he worked for the government, he would not take salary. Because, it's that if you take salary, the government gives the salary from the treasury, and in that everyone has the right in the treasury. You gave me a lot of money, I don't accept it. But the government is, they rule that they have to pay the salary. His nephew was with him, Abdurrahman. Abdurrahman says, my uncle gave me most of the salary. He said, keep it. Take some for your expenditure. And he said he would take only 10 lira a month for himself to use for his, whatever needs he has. And the rest he gave him. He says after 6 months, he asked me, how much money did you save? He says, because I know, he says, my uncle doesn't care for board his money. I spent all of it. So going around in Istanbul, nice restaurants. He said, I spent everything. He said, it's finished. He said he was very angry. He said, how? This money is not ours, it is property of people. We have to return it. That's why I gave it to you. But of course, he doesn't care. As he doesn't like such things. He said, okay, in that case, I dismiss you from my treasury account. I will keep the money. So, he says he took himself like 110 lira. He gave me 100 lira because he knows I cannot live with 10 lira. And the rest of it, he says he saved it after 8 months later when he wrote one of his early treatises. Some of those are published today. He asked me, okay, now I have this much money. I give it to you. You take this to the press. May I them to print? I don't know for that money how many copies. Maybe like say 3, 4, 500 copies. They printed. So he brought it. He says I gave it to my uncle. said, okay, now, from now on, every Friday, take to Sultan Ahmed and Ayasofya. Sophia. When people come out, distribute to all of them. He said, I told them, look, uncle, this is your right. You wrote this book, you paid money. At least please charge them one kurush. One kurush. He said very angry, no, this is not our money. This is people's money. You have to distribute it back to them.
MashaAllah.
But he said, why? He said, okay, as a salary, when you work for the government, as a salary, you can take only as much as, you know what he said in Arabic, Qutun la yamut. Only that much you can take, not more than that, he said. This is your salary, he said, if you work for the government. In other words, because the Sahabis, that's how they work. You know, Sayyidina Umar, Sayyidina Abu Bakr, you know, when they take salary from the treasury, just enough that they would maintain their life, but not in full extent. You know, that you can eat very little. So, because this money is, you know, there are yatim, many people, poor people, their rights to take the money. He had this mentality. Because of this, he wouldn't work for the government. So I can't remember how many years, but maybe less than 3 years, I think he worked in that position. And then after that, he left. He didn't continue anymore. This is the way. But when you probably, I don't know if you read anything from the history, the famous, all the allies, Europeans, the French, Italian, British, of course, taking the head, the Russians from the north, they all attacking Istanbul to capture Istanbul. And they came with a very big navy. They were passing to go to Istanbul. You have to pass through the Straits of Dardanelles. You probably heard that, right? A very long war took place over there. You know, for maybe almost 1 year, they tried, they couldn't pass. Alhamdulillah, they were able to defend that area. I think they made a movie, Westerners. You know, because Australians also came for that war, fighting against the you know, Ottomans. And now, of course, today the Australians, every year they come to Dardanelles because they lost almost you know, 2,000-3,000 soldiers there. Australia, all their graves are over there in Turkey. So every year they come in March, you know, to do prayers and things, whatever they do. We help them, of course. So they said they are not happy about that. They say we are deceived by the British, you know. But can you imagine? Even they brought soldiers from India, Muslims, and Muslims didn't know they were fighting against Muslims. They told them, you know, they lied to them that they bring them to a place to fight because they will, you know, destroy Islam. So as if they are fighting Muslims to defend Islam, but actually they are fighting against Muslims. When they discovered that, they left, of course. So this is, they couldn't pass, and then the Allied, the European army, the fleet was defeated very heavily. Very heavily. They lost more than 300,000 soldiers over there because they wanted to pass out to Istanbul. So every year we are celebrating that victory in Turkey. But later on, of course, you know, what they did, they said, if we concentrate on one area, we cannot defeat the Ottomans. Let's distribute. So then they start attacking from different parts. You know, from Algeria, Tunisia, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Northern Caucasus, and the Thrace, you know, from the Balkans, which means the Ottomans had to distribute the army for all those areas. And of course, this is not easy. You are fighting against the whole world, you know, because they knew if they destroy the Ottomans, they can destroy Islam. This, break out the Muslim world into pieces, and then they can do whatever, which they did at the end, of course. When the Ottomans lost, they occupied Istanbul. The British came to Istanbul. That's when Ustaz Nursi came to Istanbul. He was there. So, and he issued statements against the British. Probably, if you read those, the early Risale-I, he talks about these things, because when they occupied the British church, they are Presbyterian, they raised questions against Islam, like, what does Islam give to life? How does it contribute to culture and civilization? They had 6 questions. And then they said, we want Muslim scholars to give answers for these. And this is what sit there. In this, he wrote an answer for them. Ustaz, only 3 pages. He said, as if they think, how, they said, give answers in 600 words. Ustaz said, I will give you answer in 6 words only from the Quran. If you understand, you will know what Islam is. Because you see, the Quran, Islam, developed concepts for this. When we say Tawheed, we know everything. But they don't know. They don't understand. They think it is only theological. Tawheed is in life, in everything, right? In our personality and so on. So he gave like those concepts. He said, I give you the concept, I will give you the evidence from the Quran. Then he quoted the verses from the Quran with only 6 words. And that's why he said, what's it there? 6 steps. Then you can, if you are clever, you will understand, he said. He's joking with them, actually. Because he says, you are insulting us, I will insult you, and I will spit on your face, he said. So, I mean, this is all Istanbul journals, they all wrote this with big letters. They printed this, his answers like that. So, of course, Mustafa Kemal, they were working in Ankara to defend Turkey and then collect people and army and so on. If you read this, probably know the early history of Turkey. When he heard Nursi was, working, for this independence, he invited him to Ankara. And when he sent a letter invitation, we, appreciate your work, and please come and make dua for our Majlis, the new Majlis that they were establishing. At first he said no. Ustaz said no. I prefer to fight in the center, because the British are over there. At the beginning he didn't, but later on they insisted, and some other scholars also wrote to him, please come. It's important. So he went to Ankara, and and they. These are all written in the Majlis, in Turkish Parliament archives. They are still there. It's not. The Ottomans were, they were very official government. Whenever they did something, they put records. Ottoman archives are excellent. When you want something, the archive person, like librarian, he kept everything. And when the Sultan says, for example, bring me the records of Gontor, small village, he would bring it in 10 minutes. Go and then bring. Very systematically organized. So even today, the Westerners, they appreciate the Ottoman archives. They come, they still study, the Ottoman. But unfortunately, the new government, they tried to destroy it. They didn't want to keep the records, so that the new generation would not know of the Ottomans. So now they are in 1980s, our new government, they started reorganizing. So they became more systematic now again. Like the Ottomans. So if you want to do research, you can go and you can find many of the documents and examine. Even Westerners, they come, they try to study, and the court records also. The Sharia courts, they are in the Ottomans, they call them, of course, from all Arabic. One characteristic of the Ottomans is that when they invented a new term, they invented from Arabic. Even Arabs didn't know. You see? And they learned it again. So they learned their language also from the Ottomans. The technical terms, especially for administration, many of them invented by the Ottomans. And they call them Sharia Sijil. You see? And in Arabic, they don't use it. But of course, they learned and they became acquainted. As you know, Majella also. Right? All Muslims contributed to the development of Arabic. Because Arabic is not language of Arabs anymore. It is our language. Every Muslim, I mean, their language, as well as our language also. So that is why they used always, when they invented, that's why when I say something, I would say in the Ottoman, which is Arabic. So you will be able to understand more or less what they are saying. So when he came to Ankara, at that time, they won the war also. And more or less, the British was about to leave anymore because they lost, and then Turkish army was getting stronger and stronger again. So when he came, he was very happy. Of course, Ustaz Nursi was very happy that they invited, and he went and he made the dua opening the Majlis and so on. But he noticed that they are not paying attention to Islam so much anymore. And he was not happy about this. And he issued a 15-page statement explaining why you should, you celebrate, but you should celebrate in the name of Islam. Because all these people are their shaheeds. They are shuhada. They gave life not only to defend the country, but Islam. And it's not only Turks that they died in the war, shaheed there. Arabs, Kurds, many different people, India, even from India, Muslim state, to join to that war. So he said, you cannot do this. You have to, try to revive and so on. But of course, Mustafa Kemal was not happy about this. So that means his intention was a bit different. At the beginning, people didn't know. Because he himself gave khutbah, Mustafa Kemal. He also gave khutbah, with the great scholars, he was always with them to take their help. But when he took the control and the army and so on, established the new republic, then he started changing. Actually, he didn't change. He returned to his original ideas, actually. That means all the way from the beginning, he was planning to work against, how to eradicate Islam from the Ottomans. We don't know what is behind the scene going on because can you imagine, the British came and occupied Istanbul, but when the new government established, they left. Why are you leaving? You fought, you lost 300,000 soldiers to get Istanbul, but now you are leaving. Why? We don't understand it. Probably they were sure that, their purpose will be achieved by him. So there is no need for them anymore, so they can leave. And sometimes in now new documents, when they discover later on, of course, his friend Ismet İnönü, that they were giving assurances to the British that don't worry, we will eradicate Islam, no more. And that's why what they did, very good planning. Number one, change the script. Don't use Arabic script anymore. Because if you do that, the new generation, they won't be able to read the Ottoman text. They cannot read Arabic, they cannot read the Quran. And then, of course, the second, the Sharia law. They prohibited. They brought the Swiss law, Western law. And then the third thing, the dress. They changed the dress. They banned, like, if you had, this Islamic head here, they would hang you. You would be hanged. They kill, They don't joke. Like Abu Bakr, my friend, young, he doesn't know many of these. He must heard. But we lived these things. Not that I was, under this kind of a thing, because I had my education in the new thing. Even my father. But my grandfather, he was up with that generation. He would tell me. My grandmother, they would tell me how they were killing the people. If they discovered you that you are teaching Quran or Arabic, immediately your students, everything, they were taken and they are lost. You don't know where they left. You know, uh, so it became very bad like this. Ustaz Nursi, he realized that this is what he's planning, and he said, if I stay in Ankara or Istanbul, I have to fight him with politics, and he cannot win war with politics. So instead, I have to explain the Quran to people back because he killed many of the ulama. There is no one left to teach Islam anymore. So you see, this is very well planned. Many people don't know this history of Turkey, and that's why they think, Nursi, and not only him, there are other scholars also. Some of them secretly teaching the Quran schools, and so on, gradually, and in hiding. A lot of times they would go underground to teach, very hiding, and the Qurans and the books they would bury underground. So they would, when the army soldiers come, they don't see. They search the houses, they can't find books. So it was very bad at that time. For my time, of course, we couldn't wear, we have to wear hats, Western hats. We cannot wear, this. Right. So I lived that thing. It was compulsory. You cannot walk without hat. In schools, always we had, I wish I had my, I can show you, I have my pictures with hat when I was in school. You have to have that hat, It was compulsory. Everybody, was it compulsory for you also? Your time was very good. Yeah, it was not. Yani sizin zamanınızda şapka zorunlu muydu okulda? Yeah, you see, there is no. But for us, we had to have hat. If you walk on the street, our teacher sees without hat, come here. Beats you very well. Why are you coming without hat? So we had to run home to get our hat again. I mean, can you imagine this? You see, this is what we lived actually. Yeah. So that is why he said. Then he went back to one. He said, I have to tell people. In one, of course, he didn't know what to do. He just wanted to pray, and think, meditate, and so on. One of his famous students, one is Mullah Hamid. Mullah Hamid's daughter is Mullah Hamid's son-in-law is my teacher, madrasa. He was teaching the madrasa style from Diyarbakir. I myself lived in one for some time actually, and stayed with him, and he was telling many of his memories with Ustaz Nursi when he was in one. I can't remember. You can check, these things. Maybe like 1.5 years or so, he stayed in one. Then, because when some of the people, especially in Diyarbakir, saw that that this man is going to destroy Islam from Turkey, so they started collecting army to fight against him. And they came and asked Ustaz Nursi also. Mullah Said is called. You probably don't know about his name. Some people mix them. They think it is Ustaz Nursi because their names both are Said. So he came and he asked Ustaz Nursi to join him. He said, no, this is finished. You cannot fight against Turkish army. They are Muslims. What you should do is try to enlighten people about Islam. Give them consciousness. This is much better, he said. And this will grow gradually in future. Inshallah, he said, Islam will again take over. But if you fight, you will lose. But he didn't listen, unfortunately. He fought and he lost. They killed all of them. They bombed a lot of villages and destroyed many places. So as a result, what they did, because you see these people are mainly Kurdish, he was scared that Kurdish people would fight against him and they would raise up again. So what he did, the influential Kurdish families, he asked them migrate from east to the west, all Turkish areas. So when they are dispersed like that, they cannot collect people to fight against the government. So because of this, Ustaz Nursi was also exiled. They took him from one, many others, brought to Erzurum, from Erzurum to Trabzon, and from Trabzon by ship all the way to Istanbul. And Ustaz Nursi also was in Istanbul. A few months later, they had distributed them all different regions, and Ustaz Nursi was sent to Burdur. Burdur is in Mediterranean area, a small town. One of my teachers, professors actually in the university, he graduated from El-Azhar. Hamid, that was his name. He was at that time in Burdur when Ustaz came to Burdur. He said he heard that one Kurdish scholar came that he is very great. He heard. He said, "How come this Kurdish over there? I am from El-Azhar. I wonder if he knows Arabic very well." He said one day I took this very difficult text from Arabic. His handwriting was excellent, very perfect, calligraphy, because he taught us Arabic, our Arabic teacher. He said he wrote one page, and he said I'll take this to him, see if he can read it. As you know, if you can read Arabic, that means you know Arabic, because there is no haraka, right?
Yeah.
If you put haraka, everyone can read, but then they don't understand. But if they can read without the haraka, he knows, because the punctuation also, the i'rab. If he makes a mistake in the i'rab, that means he does not good Arabic. So he said, I wanted to test him. I went by him. He was staying in the masjid, in the mosque. I sat down. He asked me my name, and we talked. And when he started talking and talking and talking, he said, "Oh, this is a great scholar. I should not ask him any questions. Now I understand." So I said I enjoyed very much, his company. And when I was leaving, he saw the paper in my hand. He said, "What is that?" He said, then I felt ashamed. I said, "It's just one Arabic." He said, "Let me, if I can read it." And can you imagine that? He said, I gave it to him. He looked at it like this and he gave it back to me. He said, "Please follow, see, I will read it correctly." By memory, he read it, he said. He read it only once, the whole page. And he said he memorized it in one reading. And, and at this time, usually when you get older, your memory becomes less, not so strong anymore. I assume that at that time he must have been closer to 50 years old when he memorized it just by reading at once. And reading correctly also, he said, "Oh, this is great scholar, definitely." And after that, many times he said he went to listen to him. This is one story in Burdur. But you see, when he became known, then the government again felt very bad. People constantly coming, visiting, who was teaching in Burdur. they said, okay, because every week the governor has to report to Ankara what he is doing. When he said people are visiting, coming, and so on, the government said, okay, send him to a remote village so that no one can go. So that village is, have you heard the name of that? I don't know. Huh? You know in Turkish? Barla. Yeah. Very small, village in the mountains. I visited Barla in 1970. In 1970, that was my first year in college. Yeah, in the university, you had to walk. There is no car or nothing can go there. Very mountainous, very difficult. High mountains you go. Today, of course, they built roads. If you go today, you will think, oh, Barla, it's not came like this. It's not like that. It's all walking, or having horse or donkey and things like that. Otherwise, very difficult. So they said, okay, we got rid of him. No one will visit. But he stayed there for 10 years in exile. Most of it, maybe like more than 80% of the Risale are written in Barla and distributed from Barla throughout Turkey. How? Of course, if you read especially, you will see from in those times when he was working, he said, don't worry, I am here alone. I came here alone in Barla. But of course, constantly he was praying and meditating and thinking, how can I save Islam? How can I work for Islam? All those things. And he says, as long as you have ikhlas and you work for the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he will help you. He will bring the help. So since he brings the help, don't think that you are saving Islam. You are used in the way of Islam by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the important thing to realize. If you realize this, the help will come. And don't think that I wrote all of these things. These are all, the barakah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why he didn't like if somebody came, respected him, a lot of times, they, yes, Ustaz, you are doing this. He didn't like that. He said, I have done nothing. This is all his help. Because you look, I am a poor man. How can I do? I have no power. I am old. So how can I do this? Suppose you see someone, as a person, very weak, very thin, not doesn't have like muscles like this, right? Lifting those, weightlifters, but he's very weak and things like that. And then suddenly you see a huge 1 ton he lifts up. Obviously, he doesn't lift it up because he has those strength. So that means there is something that helps, but you cannot see it. He says he's something like that, ajiz. He says, I am an ajiz. You already know, right? Ajiz. That's why in the Risale, when he describes it, in the Naqshbandi Tariqa, Naqshbandis are mostly in Persian. They wrote in Persian. Many of them are not Persian. Different people, Arabs, Turks, maybe Malaysians, Naqshbandis also, Indonesian. But they use because Naqshbandi, he wrote primarily in Persian. He cites their principle. Ustaz Nursi says this in Mektubat. در طریق نقشبندی لازم آمد چار فرق. This is Persian. He says, they say in the tariqa of Naqshbandi, it is necessary to leave 4 things. Chahar means 4. Hark, from dünya, you understand?
Yes.
Terki ukba, terki hasti. Hasti means wujud, your wujud, your existence. So that's 3, right? What's the 4th one? Terki terk. You have to leave your renunciation. Otherwise, it will give you fakhr. Yeah, you will become, oh, look how many things I. He says, no, this. He says, this is good, of course, it's good for them, but I would like to change it for us. And he said, of course, to make it like a copy of for that, instead of calling that Tariq Naqshbandi, that Tariq Ajzimendi. He made it like that. Ajz, you already know, right? Mandi means immersed into Ajz. It is our tariqah. Of course, it's not tariqah in the traditional sense. Method means that. Or because you remember, he says, our time is not the time of tariqah. Tariqah was excellent. We should benefit from it. It's spiritual aspect. Ustad Nursi never denies this. You know, you have to follow this tariqah. But it is spiritual aspect. You know, because, you know, in the tariqah, you know, there is, you know, you have to fast, not sleep too much, not eat too much, not worldly, right? So he said these are what we have. Everyone has to do this. But as far as the regular, you know, like dhikr and things that they used to do in the past, he says this is unfortunately not anymore. It's good, it was good, very good. But now is the time of rationality. So everything would read because everything falls into sciences, and science goes with the reason, rational. We have to change it. As a result, he uses the term tariq as method to refer to that. So that tariq hajjimendi lazım chaharu cheese. In Persian, chaharu cheese means 4 things necessary that you should try to follow. Okay. So those things, acz mutlak, şükrü mutlak, şevki mutlak, ey aziz. It ends it like that, you know. Like, so this, you understand, they're all Arabic. I'll say probably, although you say Turkish, Rasail maybe 80% is Arabic. Because the word, this is the thing, you know, we are saying actually, here, it's 11 right now. Yeah, at 2 p.m. So this are the 4 things he regulated like that. When he finished in Barla, most of the Rasail, especially 4 of them, 4 basic books. The Rasail are primarily, he, as you know, divides his life into 2 periods, actually into 3. But 2 is more important. Old Sa'id, New Sa'id. So the works of Old Sa'id are mostly in Arabic. But later on translated into Turkish also. Okay? Like Isharatul Hijaz. That is his tafsir. He started writing when he was fighting against the Russians. At the same time, his student Habib was writing. He was reading. And at the same time, you know, fighting. But as a result, when they went, you know, was captured, they couldn't finish it. So I think maybe you remember, you might remember, the first about 40 verses only he wrote the tafsir. Baqarah, Fatiha and Baqarah together. After the 40th verse, he couldn't finish. Later on, he didn't continue, but he wrote a preface. If you read, you can see. If you want, you can read the Arabic one. If you read the Arabic one, the new edition by Turkish Ministry of Religious Affairs. Religious Affairs is better. It is critically edited. Excellent. One side Turkish, one side Arabic. You can read the Arabic side. It's very good. You know, printing is much better also. In the preface, he says that why he didn't continue after he came back, in other words, to Istanbul, to the written. He says because he realized that the Quran is addressing actually many of the sciences, and one person cannot be specialized in all of these sciences. So it would be better if there is a committee, each one in the committee is specialized in one science, and they also know Islamic sciences at the same time. So that means you are a medical doctor, and at the same time you are an ustaz. Okay, and you are, say, a lawyer and ustaz at the same time. You are an engineer, mechanical engineer, and ustaz at the same time. So such people come together, a committee, they can make much better tafsir. So inshallah, he said, I will leave this tafsir as an example that they should follow. And then in future, if they are able to make a committee like this, maybe they can come up with a much better tafsir of the whole Quran. That's why he said he didn't want to compete. Instead, he wrote the Risale and Masnawi Nuria also from old side. There are some other smaller ones. All of those are combined together and printed in Asar Mediaiya as a one volume, and this is printed in Arabic also. Some of them are in Arabic, some of them in Turkish, but in Arabic script. So they are collected like that. If you are interested, maybe you can find it. So then the major ones after Nusaid are four books. You already know, right? The Kalimat, Mektubat, Shu'a'at, Lama'at. Right? So these are the four books. These are basic recite. But if you want to learn Tariq Ajmendi, then you have to read the correspondence. Emirdağ, because what he wrote to his Barla, Kastamonu. These three are basic. Barla is not so important actually. If you read Raw, I don't care. But the other two are extremely important. Emirdağ, and because when he hears people reading the recite in an area, they ask him, how should we do, how should we deal? He explains them. He writes, so it's not a letter that he's asking, how are you? How is your son? How is your family? It's not like that. You know, these are scholarly correspondence. They are very important. So and when you only read those, then you understand what was going on at that time in Turkey. You know, and why he's asking this way of working for the way of Islam, for the cause. And he always said to his students, absolutely no politics. You cannot go into politics. We go into politics once only, every 4 years to vote and finish. Because we want the correct government. That is why, of course, all the governments, he says, they are not correct in the sense of Islam, but we prefer Ahwan al-Shar. So that means there is no good. That we are still choosing the Shar. We are voting for the Shar. But which one is Ahwan? Much better. As far as the Shar is concerned, we choose that one. There is no good yet at that time. But Alhamdulillah, now we have good ones also. So this is what he wanted to recommend. Don't go into politics and don't do anything against the government, and no violence, absolutely no violence. Even if there is violence against you, you are not supposed to do violence. So these are the main. You can read all of these things in that book. You know, because when violence comes from inside, namely from the government of the Muslims, if you violently react, that means two Muslims will fight with each other. But if violence comes from non-Muslims, it's different. You have to fight. So when we say this, then they say, oh, okay, Ustaz is saying, you see, that when these kuffar, they come, they fight against, we stop, we keep no violence. No, he's not saying that. Because he himself took up arms. He fought against the Russians and all those people. So he says, no violence inside amongst us, and no violence outside either from non-Muslims. As long as they don't do violence against us, we don't violence. Instead, we become friends with everyone. Why? Because they need Islam. If you fight with them, how can you teach them? How can you propagate Islam? We have to make tabligh. So these are the main principles that he wanted to say. But when they realized that, suddenly they were, oh, well, what is going on? These books, so many books are distributed throughout Turkey. He's in Barla. We thought he's not going to do anything. After 10 years, they realized this. Can you imagine how secretly they were doing this thing? And then finally, they took up with some of his friends and so on. They exiled from there to another city, and another city is always like that until ending in Emirdağ. That was in 1960. 1960, then when Ustaz Nursi, he was very sick and he realized that he's going to die. Of course, he's not telling his students, but his students, of course, all of his students are Turkish, you know, at that time. He himself is Kurdish. Early life, most of his students were Kurdish, of course. But in later life, almost never spoke Kurdish. So, and he has a saying, you know, I listen from his students also, that he used to say that, you know, my early students, they were heroic, because they could give their life for me. But he says, my later students are more heroic because they gave their whole life. They made work of themselves to serve Islam. So he told them that prepare the car, and Mr. Bayram, he was his driver. He was very, you have probably some of their pictures at that time. They have. He drove, you know, all the way from Emirdağ, coming to Konya, visit his brother Abdul Majid was there, and Maulana also, Rumi, visited his grave, and then, of course, at that time, when they got, how can he leave that place, because he's not supposed to be, he's in exile. So they constantly called the police officers, don't let him go, don't, but they didn't listen. So from Konya went to Adana, Antep, and Urfa. So that's where Urfa he died, which means he wanted to die in Urfa. So this is March 25th, I think, 24th to 25th at night, when he died in 1960. Say, if you think it's the end of March, April, May, there was a great coup in Turkey. Because Adnan Menderes, when he won, he was the prime minister. He won the elections in 1950, and he changed a lot of things about Islam. For instance, giving the azan in Arabic was prohibited. You have to read in Turkish, you know, in the masjid, and they would follow you. And, you know, he changed all of these things. And then he allowed the Quran, teaching the Quran and things like that. So because of this, they made the coup, the government, and the army took over again, as you probably know. They hanged the prime minister because of this. And then they said, take Nursi from his grave and throw him into another place that nobody knows his grave. So they took him they opened up his grave, they took his body, and they brought somewhere in Sparta, that area, because that's where he was exiled. That's why he had to go there, because he should have been there. Why did he go to Urfa? So today nobody knows his grave. And some of students, they said, he always used to tell them he wished that his grave would not be known. And then, of course, his students, they followed his way, and then they established like this dersanes, and usually they would rent apartments and houses. Students would stay there, mostly university students, mostly, and they would read the Risales in the 60s. In 1960, he died, and after that, his students that were with him, each one went to a big city: Istanbul, Ankara, Adana, Izmir. In those areas, they established the same system that he was teaching them. And this is what happened, and many of these, including myself, were educated in those houses when we were in the university. And I was with his student, Bayram Yüksel. He was in Ankara. And Said Özdemir, you probably heard about him. Said Özdemir, you met Said Yüce, that's his uncle. No, Ibrahim Özdemir in Antep. Yeah, their last name same, but not related. Yeah. So this is the way, this until about 1980, there was no translation in any other language. I think first time it was translated into English. If you read Ayatul Kubra, for example, in English, Professor Hamid Algar first translated that. And then when Shukran Wahida, she became Muslim, she moved to Istanbul, and then because reading the Rasail, she was very much, influenced by that. And then by reading and studying, finally, she said, I will translate into English. So she started devoted all of her life. She didn't do anything else. And then when it became famous in English, many people, and then you have it now here in Bahasa, right? The translations throughout the whole world distributed like that. Bayram Yüksel, I was with him, and he said, we were in a village, small, nobody, writing the Rasail, we didn't know what we were doing, he said. And he was telling us, don't worry, the whole world will read these books. We couldn't believe him, he said. And he said, who's good? Who's the one? Not even in Turkey, everybody is reading the Rasail. How come the whole world will read it? But you see, this is what it's all Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I mean, when you think even in our lives, right now you are a bit young. When you get older, you look back, how your life proceeded. You can see many things you didn't plan. You didn't plan. It goes in your mind, but you see it goes in different ways because you don't know. Even I mean, can you imagine even Ustad Nursi, if you go to see the village remote area. How can this person become, even think of our Prophet ﷺ, right? In Mecca, small village, one person, right? So that means they cannot do this. So that means Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he has his own plan. And we don't know that. Since we don't know it, we give ourselves, it's like as if we are a dry leaf falling from the tree. You just leave yourself for the wind. Because that wind is not, haphazard. It's not by chance. It is planned. Whoever created the wind will ask the wind to take the leaf to wherever he wants to. So that's the way it works. Even myself, from a remote village in the east, I'm coming from again one, but I'm in a village, very small area. If somebody would tell my father, don't worry, your son will be, going to be a very good scholar, going to the University of Chicago, will get his PhD there. My father would say, how come this village? No, it's impossible. He wouldn't believe in that. You see? So that means it's not in our hands. As long as we want, this is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he wants us to walk in this way, we live ourselves like the leaf. He will blow us around. This is the way. So don't think that you are doing something. Never think of that. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he gives us that consciousness that we are doing it, because that gives us enjoyment also. I achieved that, alhamdulillah. So this is for an enjoyment, he gives you that consciousness. And also he gives you that consciousness for you, you are responsible because you made the choice. He blew you, but you made the choice. He didn't make the choice. He left your choice free. So that means there are things that we are free to do. There are things that we are not free to do. How can you distinguish? I'll give you a criteria. When you do something that leads to something new that is existing, you have not done it. Because that means something new is created. We are not able to create anything. But when you choose something that you think you do, it doesn't lead to a new creation, you have done it. And that is a choice. Because there is no creation in choice. Right? But in the action, there is creation. That means you have not done it. Sometimes when Ibn al-Arabi, you heard of him, right? Ibn al-Arabi, he concentrated so much on this fact that he realized when he's walking, actually he's not walking. He said, God is walking.
Yes.
When he said this, Ibn Taymiyyah said, you are kafir. He's not. But he didn't realize, why he's saying this. Because he realized so much that actually he's not walking. He made the choice to walk. But it is the qudra, everything is created suddenly in him, that it is actually Allah that makes him walk. That realization is very important. So this is really the main principle in Islamic khidmah. If you work for the cause of Islam, this is the way. If you realize this, you will see Allah will give you the success. Success is always from Him. Ustaz gives the example. Jalaluddin Kharzim Shah. You heard him? A great warrior, Mujahid. He was fighting against the Crusades and the Mongols. He says whenever he was preparing the army ready to go, for the war, his Wuzara, the Viziers, right? And commanders saying, Inshallah, don't worry, Allah, He will give you success, you will win the war, don't worry. He said, I'm not worried. It's not my I don't care whether I am successful or not. My duty is to fight. Success comes from Him. It's for Him. Why should I cannot interfere into His work. My work is to fight for the cause of Islam. If He gives me success, it's a blessing. If He doesn't give me, that is His will. I don't care if I fell shaheed or anything, this is my duty. And he says because he realized this fact so much, Allah always gave him success. He won every single war. So this realization is very important in the consciousness. Inshallah, please try to read. You know, Ustaz always emphasizes that please read. Sometimes, like for example, Ikhlas Risale, he says you should read every 15 days. You know, one day Mullah Hamid, his early student, he said, Mullah Hamid is a very sincere person. I wish you saw him, you know. We were young, you know, we go talk to him like he's our friend. He was, you know, he was very humble. And because of this, he was like that with Ustaz also. Many people went to him, Ustaz Nursi, you know, it's like they're scared to talk. But he was not like that. He said, you know, he's like a friend I would talk because he was serving him. You know, he said he went, you know, he's Kurdish also. He said when he read this, one time he asked him, uh, you know, Kurds, they call their ustaz, they call Seyda. Seyda means like professor. Like Hocam we say in Turkish, and in Kurdish they usually use that word. That Seyda. This ikhlas is not a hizb. It's not dhikr. It's not, you know, nothing like the Quran. Why are you saying 15? I read it 2, 3 times, that is enough. Why are you asking? You know, no one can ask like this to him. But, you know, he told me, my brother, Mullah Hamid, anything that you do, if you lose ikhlas, your work is nothing. It loses its value. For this reason, too, as a reminder, if you read, you try to keep your ikhlas reviving. Every week you revive it. That is why. So, and in the same way, our Prophet ﷺ also tells us to read the Quran constantly. We have to read a lot because, of course, our Prophet ﷺ says, when you read, you will get so much sawab. If you read on the Jum'ah days, Fridays, you get 10 times more. If you read in the Ramadan, you get 100 times. As you know, what about Laylatul Qadr? Alf Sanatin, right? Can you imagine like how many thousands of you get? Of course, this is true, but you know, the actual stuff you get is the fact that the Quran is shaping you. That is the sawab. Because if it shapes you, you live like the Quran. So that is the greatest honor and the greatest sawab for you. But of course, you get the Jannah that is different. It is the result. We don't care for that. So our purpose is to read. To read. And these are, of course, you know, they also, because Ustaz always says that the whole Risale is the tafsir of the Quran. It is the tafsir of the Quran. You can see, of course, when quotes the verses and things, and many ahadith also, all of these things. So the shape that the Risale gives us is again the shape of the Quran, because they are the rays coming out of the Quran. And that's why it's the Nur. So, inshallah, if you read, you can try to get that method using in sciences, you know, in your area and so on. It will be very beneficial for you. So, thank you very much. Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen.
Is there any question maybe from someone wants to ask?
We just have one.